Juan Guaidó urged Venezuelans to take part in what he calls Operation Freedom in a final push to topple President Nicolás Maduro. Guaidó said he had the support of the brave soldiers in Caracas, and he called on the military to help him end Maduro's rule, trying to encourage them, saying that they will be on the right side of history if they were to support him. Violence followed as people took to the streets all across the country, with running clashes between opposition supporters and armed military vehicles. As protesters threw rocks and Molotov bombs, they were repelled by tear gas and water cannon. At one point, an armored car drove directly into a crowd. Buses were set on fire here in Caracas, and dozens of people have been reported injured across the country. The political situation, meanwhile, remains incredibly fluid.
If the military is standing by Maduro, it would be a staggering change of events, considering Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that early today Maduro was headed to Havana. Quote, he had an airplane on the tarmac. He was ready to leave this morning, as we understand it, and the Russians indicated he should stay. The Russians and Cubans are Maduro's primary supporters, and President Trump has now threatened Cuba with a, quote, complete embargo and the highest level of sanctions. U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton says what's happening in Venezuela is not a coup because the U.S. recognizes Guaidó as the legitimate leader trying to take command of his military. And the U.S. says all options are on the table.
Venezuela's current government has done a poor job of providing for its own people. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, yet it remains one of the most impoverished and the most dangerous places on the planet. That is beyond dispute. Everything else is up for debate. Would the overthrow of Maduro make Venezuela a more stable, prosperous country? More to the point, would it be good for the United States? Lots of people claim to know the answer to that, but they don't. They have no idea. If recent history is any guide, nothing will turn out as expected. Few things ever do. But that has not stopped the geniuses in Washington. It has not even slowed them down. This afternoon, on a bipartisan basis, they agreed that the United States ought to jump immediately, face first, into the Venezuela mess. Watch Florida Senator Rick Scott explain.
Do you think that our presence there would make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. I was down on the Venezuelan border last Wednesday. This is just pure genocide. Maduro is killing his own citizen.
Is it worth, though, however strongly you feel, sir, losing American men and women to do just that?
Neil, here's what's going to happen. We are in the process, if we don't win today, we were going to have Syria in this hemisphere. So we can either make sure something happens now, or we can deal with this for decades to come. If we care about families, if we care about the human race, if we care about our fellow worldwide citizens, then we've got to step up and stop this genocide.
But before the bombers take off, let's just answer a few quick questions, starting with the most obvious. When was the last time we successfully meddled in the political life of another country? Has it ever worked? How are those democracies we set up in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, and Afghanistan tonight? How would Venezuela be different? Please explain, and take your time. Colonel Douglas Macgregor is a retired U.S. Army colonel, author of the book Margin of Victory, a frequent guest on the show, and he joins us tonight. Colonel, this is in no way a defense of the Maduro regime, which it never even occurred to me to defend. I never would. But I'm not sold on the idea that I should feel afraid of the Venezuelan government, should I?
Well, keep in mind, first of all, we have the Washington War Lobby, which is bipartisan and has decided we should intervene there. That's, in and of itself, is something we should be concerned about. The second thing is our interests there are not so crystal clear. First of all, we don't need to control the Venezuelan oil market, which is on the minds of many people right now inside the Beltway. We're a net exporter of oil, so we don't need to reassert our dominance in that market, which we were dominant in for many, many decades. The second thing is it's a lose-lose proposition for us. We're playing puppet master. We want to replace Maduro, the communist, with Guaido, the socialist. Guaido is going to inherit all of the problems that brought Chavez to power. A huge underclass which wants to be permanently dependent upon the government and expects to be cared for. He's got to do that. If we're going to put him into power and keep him into power, we have to spend billions of dollars to keep him there. So we turn Venezuela into the 51st state, effectively, pouring resources in to keep him there. Over time, our history in Latin America is a disaster. We will incur the hostility of the population. They'll want us ultimately to leave. And if he is viewed as a puppet, he's going to have trouble lasting.
So I've done, I don't know, 50 interviews with people on the subject of immigration. You say, well, why should the United States absorb a third of the population of El Salvador? And if you push them far enough, they'll say because the United States intervened in the internal affairs of El Salvador, therefore you have a moral obligation to accept the population. Why is that not going to happen 20 years from now with Venezuela?
Well, first of all, we don't know what will happen in 20 years,
Well,
except that
exactly.
in 20 years, Venezuela is going to look a lot like it does today, contrary to popular belief. And our intervention there isn't going to change a damn thing.